So we are continuing with Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 8, Attaining the Supreme. And we will cover verse 10 onwards till the end of the chapter. Verse number 10. Prayana kale manasachalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva Bhruvor madhye pranamaveshya samyak satam param purusham upeti divyam. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows and, by the strength of yoga with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Who would like to read the purport?
I can read?
Yes, please.
In this verse, it is clearly stated that at the time of death, the mind must be fixed in devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those practiced in yoga, it is recommended that they raise the life force between the eyebrows to the Ajna chakra. The practice of Sat Chakra Yoga involving meditation on the 6 chakras is suggested here. A pure devotee does not practice such yoga, but because he is always engaged in Krishna consciousness, at death he can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead by his grace. This is explained in verse 14. The particular use of the word yoga balena is significant in this verse because without practice of yoga, whether Sat Chakra Yoga or Bhakti Yoga, one cannot come to this transcendental state of being at the time of death. One cannot suddenly remember the Supreme Lord at death. One must have practiced some yoga system, especially the system of Bhakti Yoga. Since one's mind at death is very disturbed, one should practice transcendence through yoga during one's life.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So as we can see, we are continuing in this chapter of Attaining the Supreme. In verse number 7, Krishna said that Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without fail. So he has been stressing on this point over and over again to fix the mind on Krishna in his personal form, like the form that was present in front of Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And then again, next verse, he says, those who meditate on me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated, is sure to reach me. So he's even stressing on the point of undeviated mind. So it should not be that mind is, going in different directions and different places. No, there has to be no deviation at all. And also we saw before these verses, Krishna says, Anta kale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram. And again he repeated after that the next verse, Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tajatante kalevaram. What does that mean? He's telling Arjuna that the time of death is very, very significant. It's very important because whatever we are thinking at the time of death, to that state we will attain without fail. And here again in today's verse, he's saying that there is a process, and that is the Sata Chakra process, the Chakra Yoga, 6 Chakra Yoga, Or he's also talking about those yogis who are, Ashtanga yogis and Dhyan yogis. What do? He's saying at the time of death, they fix the life air between the eyebrows by the strength of yoga. And with an undeviating mind, engaging himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion. So there's so many criteria over here just to attain the Supreme. It's not just that, oh, I won't do anything, or I'll do a little bit, and then at the time of death, I'm going to remember Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. It doesn't work like that. Here, Krishna is giving two options. And when we see in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that for the devotee, for the pure devotee does not have to worry about this six chakra yoga or anything. Why? Because a pure devotee is constantly remembering the Supreme Lord. His mind is fixed on the Supreme Lord. It's undeviated. There is full devotion. There is full surrender. So here, if we decide, that if is there, that if we decide, yes, this is my last birth, I don't want to come back into this material world. So to qualify to go to the spiritual world, what do I need to do? This is what Krishna is saying, that at the time of death, we need to think of him with undeviated mind, remember him with full devotion. Then, now it's important that the mind is fixed in Krishna at the time of death. So if we engage our mind in Krishna conscious activities, then this chakra yoga is not necessary, because this six chakra yoga is very difficult. Now imagine, we are about to die, and we are all choked up, the senses are stopped, senses are not working anymore, and at that time we have to fix the life air between the eyebrows. How do you do that? There's so much confusion, there's so much going on and change in the body, the soul is trying to leave the body, so it's not practical. So a pure devotee does not practice this six chakra yoga, because Bhakti Yoga is the best, always engaged in devotional service. Any activity that we perform, we can dovetail it in Krishna consciousness. And to be able to do that, we need the mercy of the Supreme Lord. And the Supreme Lord gives us a mercy only when we follow his instructions, which means practice Krishna consciousness on a daily basis. Now, one can establish oneself in what is yoga? Yoga is nothing but a linking process. It's to link, it's to connect to the Supreme Lord. That is yoga. And in that yoga ladder, where it is karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga, these are just the rungs, but the topmost rung is bhakti yoga. That's the best form. And when Krishna came 500 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said that in this Kali Yuga, at this time, the best yoga process is mantra meditation, that we chant the holy name. It's very practical, it's easy, and it's very simple, and it doesn't take too much time. Why chanting? Because chanting helps us with the sound vibrations. When the sound vibrations of the holy name enter into our heart, they start cleansing our heart, and that helps us to remember Krishna. It is said of all the senses, the ear is the most powerful, the ear. And that is why the sound vibrations going into the ear help us to purify ourselves. Now, we also read in the Bhagavad Gita about Omkara, if you remember, right? Chanting Om, chanting Omkara. Now, Hare Krishna Mahamantra includes Om also. And Hare Krishna Mahamantra is for this age of Kali Yuga. And in Kali Yuga, like it says, Krite Yadhyayato Vishnu, Tretayam Yajatomaka. In Satya Yuga, process was meditation. In Treta Yuga, it was fire sacrifice. In Dwapar Yuga, it was elaborate worship in the temple. But in Kali Yuga, Hari Kirtana, it's chanting of the holy names of Lord Hari, which is Lord Krishna. So this is how we can purify ourselves and qualify ourselves to go back to the spiritual world in this age of Kali Yuga. It's like, I have a disease, I go to the doctor and the doctor says you have disease X, and then I decide that I want to take medication for disease Y. It doesn't make sense. If I have disease X, I take medication for disease X. Medication for disease Y is not going to help me cure myself of disease X. So similarly, the process for self-realization in other yugas is not practical in Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, chanting is the process to become self-realized. And how do we always remember him? It has to be with full devotion. Is it easy to obtain? Yes, it is. Because here Krishna says constant engagement in devotional service. So pure bhakti is required, pure Krishna consciousness, which means there should be no material contamination in it, like material desires, no personal agenda in that. No. Smartavya satatam Vishnu vismartavya na jatuchit. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. And then Krishna says, Ma popetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. Punarjanma. There will be no more birth. After you give up this body, Arjuna, if you think of me at the time of death, there will be no more another body. You don't have to take on another body and come back into this material world, which is dukhalayam ashashvatam. It is temporary and it is full of miseries. And he is making it very clear. He's saying, you do not come back. You reach the highest perfection. And when we see verse number 11 onwards, we can see Krishna, he is describing on how to fix the life air, how to fix the mind, how to remember him at the time of death. You see, if you see, he says, persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order, enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air at the top of the head. One establishes himself in yoga. Reading itself, it makes your head go round and round. How do you do all that, right? It is so difficult. It's the difficult part of yoga practice. And then after that, he says, after being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets. Now, Krishna is giving the knowledge to Arjuna, but he's also going to give him a simple process, how to do that. Like, for instance, in verse 14, he says, for one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of his constant engagement in devotional service. That is why it's very important that there has to be regularity, there has to be some discipline. It is always remember. Why constant engagement? Because only by constant engagement, the mind will learn, the mind will get trained to be fixed in Krishna. Then at the time of death, which is a final examination, the mind would have been trained enough to remember the Lord just before leaving the body. And it has to be constant. And it gradually then that devotion needs to turn into unalloyed devotion. That is essential. There should be no mixture, right? Like we learned in chapter 7, 4 kinds of people who surrender to Krishna, right? Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukritino. Arjuna. Sukritino means pious. 4 kinds. Who? One who's distressed, one who wants money, one who's inquisitive, and one who wants knowledge. So now, all these, they have a personal agenda, right? So they are surrendering to the Lord, but they need something in return. They want wealth, or they want to get rid of miseries, or whatever it is. So there has to be no mixture at all. It has to be pure devotional service, which is called Nishkam Bhakti, right? So which means it is nothing about I, me, and mine. No, it is just that Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nityadas. It's our constitutional position to be eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. And the best way is to perform devotional service, pure devotional service. And it starts with chanting, hearing, following regulative principles. And what is the qualification? Simple. Thinking about the Lord. Like Krishna says, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam Yatantascha Dhridavritaha. That we have to be always constantly chanting. It may not be practical to do it um, aloud, like, that can be heard, but at least if we chant, for 10, 20, 30 minutes a day in the morning aloud, so that we can hear the sound vibrations, then that recording will keep playing throughout the day. Then in our mind, we will continue to be chanting, even though we are doing our work, we are at work, in the office, at home, or whatever the situation may be, we will still be engaged in Krishna consciousness. Now, what is the purpose of this Bhakti Yoga? Yoga means linking, connecting. Bhakti means with devotion. So connecting with the Supreme Lord in the in the form of bhakti, devotion, right? So there are 5 different kinds, the primary kinds of relationships one can build with the Lord. So it is called Shantaras, which is neutral, which means, yes, I want to connect with the Lord, but there is no kind of a particular relationship, it's neutral. Then there is Dasya Ras, which is thinking oneself to be the servant of the Lord. Then there is Sakhya Ras, where we consider the Lord to be our friend. Then there is Vatsalya Ras, where we think Krishna is my child and I am the parent of the child. And the topmost is Madhurya Ras, which is a loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, like a lover. So these are the different rasas or mellows in which we can connect with the Supreme Lord. Now, once Krishna says that once we are back in the spiritual world. Now, so spiritual world has the Vaikuntha planets. Kuntha means misery, Vaikuntha means no misery. So Vaikuntha planets. And then the topmost Vaikuntha planet is called Goloka Vrindavan. That's where Krishna resides. So Krishna says that when we reach Goloka Vrindavan, then there is no returning back to this material world full of miseries. Why? Because we would have achieved the highest perfection, broken the cycle of birth and death, and reached the highest goal. Now, very important verse is number 16. If you read, it says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna. Mamopetya tu kanteya punarjanmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So there is a guarantee over here, right? That he's saying that even if we go to that highest material planet, which is Brahmaloka, now we have already heard that the duration of Lord Brahma's 100 years is equal to 311 trillion 40 billion years of ours on this earthly planet, right? So even if one lives for that many years, millions and trillions of years in Brahmaloka, it says from there also one may come down to this material world, because still it is in the material realm. But if only if you go to the spiritual world, then he says you do not come back into the material world. So the goal of all kinds of yoga is to attain Krishna. And as I was explaining the yoga ladder, okay, first I'll start with karma yoga, then I'll get some jnana yoga, then I'll practice some dhyana yoga, and then I'll do ashtanga yoga, and then finally I will try to attempt on bhakti yoga. Well, why not take a shortcut? When there is an elevator, why do we want to climb the stairs? We just go directly to bhakti yoga, because bhakti yoga includes all these rungs of the ladder. So why try to go to higher planets like Brahmaloka or this loka? No, just aim for the topmost planet, which is Goloka Vrindavan, from where we do not come back. What does he say in 17? By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day. And such also is the duration of his night. You see? Can you imagine? 1,000 ages. Now let's calculate. So in one cycle of ages, there are four yugas: Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Kali Yuga. Okay, that is one cycle. Satya Yuga is roughly 1.7 million years. Treta Yuga is 1.3 million years. Dwapar Yuga 864,000 years, and Kali Yuga 432,000 years. This is the duration of these yugas, right? Now this you multiply by 1,000 times. That is one day of Brahma. And similarly, you again multiply by 1,000, that is one night of Brahma. You see, same one night. So we can see that even though Lord Brahma has such a long lifespan, still after 100 years, it's the end, right? So Brahma, during Brahma's day, everything is manifest from the unmanifest state, and at night, again, it is unmanifest, which means, so I have already explained, at the night, one night of Brahma, there is partial annihilation, and then when Brahma's 100 years is over, then there is complete annihilation. So this happens again and again. And what do we living entities do? We are helpless. Daytime of Brahma, yeah, we are acting on a higher or lower planets. We are on this earthly planet, or we are on the heavenly planets, wherever. But when at night, when night of Brahma comes, there is partial annihilation. And then what happens? We living entities enter into the body of Lord Vishnu, and we just stay there till again it is manifest, right? So then we need to understand, we need to think about this, that do we want to go through this process again and again and again? Manifest, unmanifest, stay in the body, come back, come down to planets, go to the higher planet. Why? An intelligent person would want to break this cycle for good, forever. Let's read verse number 20. Yet there is another unmanifest nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and it is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that remains as it is. Guess what is that? That is a supreme abode of the Supreme Lord. That is Goloka Vrindavan, from where one does not return. And there is a very nice description of the Goloka Vrindavan. It's called Chintamani Dham. It is a palace of touchstones and desire trees, like this beautiful description given. And Krishna, who is greater than all, he's present in Goloka Vrindavan. He's all pervading. He's in everything. He's in everybody. Everything is in him. If you remember, last time when we had covered the whole Bhagavad Gita in chapter 10, we had read, Krishna says, Aham sarvasya prabhava mataha sarvam pravartate, that everything comes from me and everything is within me. You see, he says everything, all the demigods and planets, they all come from me. So even though his abode is there, he is in his abode, he is within all of us, and everything is in him, still, even though he's present everywhere, still he is there in his abode, which is Goloka Vrindavan. He's present there all the time. And this chapter shows us how we can attain to that abode with unalloyed devotional service. And over there, like he says, that everything gets annihilated, but that Goloka Vrindavan always remains as it is. It is full of spiritual bliss. And what is the process of attaining that place, attaining the Supreme? It is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. Now, as I was talking about Vaikuntha planets, in the purport nicely it's explained that yes, Vaikuntha planets are those planets where Krishna's plenary expansions are there, like Lord Nrsimhadev, Shankarshana, Damodara, Narayana, Sridhara. So all different plenary expansions of Krishna are in Vaikuntha planets. But Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of all incarnations, he stays in Goloka Vrindavana. Now, if we read from verse 23 onwards till 27, Krishna is explaining how dying at different times decides if one comes back or does not. Right? Let's see. He says, "O best of the Bharatas, I shall explain to you the different times at which passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back. Those who know the supreme Brahman attain that supreme by passing away from the world during the influence of the fiery god in the light at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches a moon planet but again comes back. According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when passes in darkness, he returns. Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered, therefore be always fixed in devotion. You see? Do you think we can decide when to pass, when the life is going to come to an end? Or is it that, it is nighttime, it's dark, and my soul is about to leave the body? Can we control it and say, no, hold on, tomorrow morning when there is light? No, that's not possible. So what is the solution? Simple solution is that the devotees, they never get bewildered. They are chanting on a daily basis to train the mind, to fix the mind on Krishna at the time. It's the preparation for the final examination. So they do not, why? Because they are performing unalloyed devotion. They don't have to worry. Krishna says, Ma Suchaha, do not worry. I will take care of you. The guarantee is there. So complete surrender is needed. We need to leave the end result to Krishna. Depend on him. If you remember chapter 3 and 5, what did we read? That we have to perform a karma, which means, yes, we follow the Bhagavad Gita, we do our activities according to the scriptures, but we do not desire to enjoy the fruits of our actions. So that is a karma. So that there are no reactions. Otherwise, every action has a reaction. Now here we read these few verses where the yogis have to work so hard. They have to control their life air. They have to control the time when they leave the body so much. Why take the risk? Why perform so much physical austerity, right? When the end is not even sure, are we going to be, even after practicing this all, like trying to control the life air between the eyebrows or top of the head or whatever, there is no guarantee that there will be success at the end of the life, the final examination. So devotees are not worried. Why? Because they're always fixed in, all their activities are dovetailed in Krishna consciousness. So even Krishna is advising Arjuna, do not be disturbed. You see, all these paths, I'm giving you all the details, all the knowledge of different paths, because people like to follow different paths. They want to, some want to do, 6 chakra yoga, or some want to do ashtanga, whatever. They have an option. But the best thing is to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And the first step is chanting. Now let's read number 28. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme, eternal abode. You see, this is the final instruction on this chapter, how to attain the Supreme Lord. So when one performs Bhakti Yoga, what all is covered in that? Just like Prabhupada explains, when we have $100 bill, $10 is already included in that $100 bill, right? It's a big amount. So when we perform Bhakti Yoga, that means what is included? Studying of the Vedas, performing of fire sacrifices, giving charity, performing austerities, doing fruitive activities. And what is the end result? go back to Goloka Vrindavan, which is the spiritual supreme abode. So this is a summary of chapter 7 and 8 of Bhagavad Gita, that if we perform Bhakti Yoga under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, even if we have little faith, if we approach a bona fide guru and learn from that guru, then this knowledge will help us to remove all our misgivings. It will help us to attain the supreme. Because what is the purpose of knowledge? The purpose of knowledge is to change the jnana, knowledge, into vijnana, means realization. Bhagavad Gita is not just just a regular book, that we can, whenever we have time, we can just open and read. No, it's a manual for human form of life. Just like when we buy a car, along with comes the owner's manual that tells us, what's the gas to use, uh, about the maintenance, about the operations of that vehicle, everything, all details are there, how to use that vehicle in the right way. For instance, if it says you got to put in 89 or 93 or 87, gas or whatever, we can't just put diesel in there and say, oh, I like green color, so let me put diesel. No, we have to follow the instructions of the owner's manual. Similarly, this Bhagavad Gita is the owner's manual for us human beings, which shows us how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to perform the activities, all that information, the austerities of the mind, the body, the speech. So all this, the instructions are given in the manual, so that we can somehow or the other become self-realized, understand our true identity, and somehow or the other build a relationship, that yoga connection with the Supreme Lord. I have left my father's home and I'm wandering here and there and I'm suffering. What does the father want? The father wants the child to come back home, right? To continue with that same loving relationship like before. What's the point of us, wandering here in this material world, suffering birth, disease, old age, death? Our Supreme Father, who has a beautiful home which is called Chintamani Dham, which is Goloka Vrindavan, where there are desire trees and there are palaces of, uh, I mean, it's, if we sit down to even describe, it is impossible to describe the glory of Goloka Vrindavan. There is no misery, there's no birth, no death, no disease, no old age, nothing. There's just pure eternal bliss over there. So to reach that place where we have come from, where we belong, that is why it's called going back to Godhead, going back, because we have come from there. So Bhagavad Gita teaches us, like especially this chapter 8, which is, Krishna is so kind, he's telling us how to attain him, how to go back to that spiritual world. So this is how this chapter ends, and I wanted to know if any of you have any questions. No questions? Okay. So what we will do is we will meet next Wednesday and we will start chapter 9, which is the most confidential knowledge. Okay. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.